So, Brad, I got to ask you a serious question. Have you ever encountered a guillotine toilet?
A guillotine toilet?
Yes.
I hope I haven't.
a guillotine toilet. So I'm down at my parents' house this week, and I'm helping them out with a task. So I step away to use the restroom, and I flip up the toilet seat, as every good little 9-year-old boy learns how to do, right? And I start peeing, and the toilet seat comes flying down at me, and I don't know how does one react in this moment? What? You tell me, because I didn't know what to do. Do you A, try to reach out and grab the toilet seat as it's falling at you, in which case you might Jackson Pollock the wall, or do you try desperately to, in what every human can relate to immediately cut off your bladder and try to stop things sort of mid-process, which is
not for the last 10 years.
Because I'm like, I catch it, which seemed for the first time things worked out well. I don't know what the hell was wrong with this hinge. It starts coming back down at me again, and not like at a slow pace. It's literally like I'm the king of France, and this is the mob coming at me with the guillotine. I don't know what to do. So it was this mad dash, desperate. I was like sweating by the end of the session. I was like, oh God. Have you ever encountered this? Has this ever happened to you?
I know exactly what you're talking about, and sometimes I think people do it on purpose. Like they put those. A lot of times it's because they put that big fluffy cover on the toilet seat.
No one has
dense.
done that since 1978. Put that fluffy cover on.
Yeah, but I mean, think about where I grew up. Bad Axe said they held on to that stuff for decades later. But that was a big thing. And then the toilet seat always fell down, and I always thought that was like a feature, not a bug. You know what I mean? So yes, I have definitely stood there facing the guillotine toilet, saying "Liberty, equality, fraternity. I just want to pee."
You just see your life, coming at you as a what did they call that in the Italian Renaissance, where they would snip opera singers, so that they would sing really powerfully? They were called castrati. That's right, because they literally castrated them, and then as opera singers, they were anyway. So I'm here at my parents' house helping them out with the task, and I'm like, well, here I go into my new life as a castrati. I guess that's what the path for me.
Yeah, but those folks knew how to sing beforehand.
To hell with
They
you.
didn't just magically learn how to sing.
In my shower, it is an amazing performance. Hold on, though, before we move on, because I just realized I said guillotine, didn't I? Isn't it guillotine?
Well, listen, if you're most people are going to say guillotine, but if you're putting on airs, you'll say guillotine.
Well, this is probably a fair point to say. Earlier this week, Brad and I were talking about, hey, do you think we'll ever get invited to the big French comic show? And Brad says, I would love to go to Angoulême. And I said,
Angoulême.
I, who don't speak French and who don't even have the proper grasp of the language, corrected my friend. And I said, oh, no, Brad, it's not pronounced Angoulême. And he goes, well, what's it pronounced? And I said, it's Angoulême. And Brad takes me to task.
I'm like, you just said the exact same thing I said, except you said it like Pepe Le Pew. Angoulême.
I was so mad at myself after we hung up the phone, because I was like, what the hell are you doing, Dave? A, why are you correcting him for Angoulême? You don't speak the language. You don't even know for sure how the word is pronounced. And also, who cares? Why did you need to be right about this? It was so stupid.
Yeah. And then I heard later on he hung up the phone and walked over and had a nice poisson, and then had a cup of coffee and left, and it was like,
un croissant, s'il vous plaît. Du Angoulême? Yeah. And so on that note of mispronunciations and new careers in castratiness, I will say hello, everybody, and welcome to Comic Lab, the show about getting snipped and making comics.
Oh, and cringing your way through a podcast and making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc.
And I'm his pal Dave Kellogg, cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of the comics documentary Stripped.
And this week's hour of comics advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, Let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. And before we jump into everything, I want to just give everybody a quick update because I am super excited about this. My Kickstarter for my new book is out and going and running, and I would love, love, love to have you join me on it because it is one of my favorite books I've ever done. Have you ever done this book where certain collections, you're like, yeah, these are good. But then other collections, you're looking over and you're like, oh, these years were great. These were great years, you know? And so this collection of Sheldon comics is over at picklesbook.com. That's a redirect that'll get you to my Kickstarter, picklesbook.com, because the book is called Get It Together, Pickles. It is the 11th Sheldon collection, but it has this whole subsection focused on my ne'er-do-well bird, Pickles. And it's 240 pages of color comics. It's the biggest Sheldon collection I've ever made. Picklesbook.com. Please join me. The book is fantastic. You are going to love it. Picklesbook.com.
No, hold on. Before we go any further, because I really didn't know this, is this so? It's not all Pickles cartoons. It's just it's a collection, and it has a special showcase of Pickles comics.
Yes. What we've done is we've sort of given those pages a gentle purplish tint because he's a purple bird, and so that little subsection will just feature every Pickles comic I've ever done.
With a full bleed, so you'll see it off to the side.
Sure.
You'll be able to see it on the side pages. You've got a full bleed there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that idea. I love it.
It's going to be a fun book. And if we unlock all the stretch goals, we're going to have French flaps, which is my favorite word in publishing. French flaps. Speaking of castratis. French flaps are those classy things on softcover books that make a softcover book feel like a little bit like a hardcover book. They just get it's a folded in cover. It's hard to explain without visuals, but anyway, it's really classy. We're going to shoot for UV printing on the front. We're going to shoot for some extra stuff along the way. So and if nothing else, I'm always so proud of my videos. You have to go check out the video over at picklesbook.com because we tried to do a 90s children's television show this time, and it came out really fun. So please go check out picklesbook.com.
Oh, my God. Well, listen, Dave, before you read the first question, I just want to say to anybody who's actually still listening to this show, I listened to last week's show, and I think it might have been the most useless show we've ever done. We spent the first half hour warbling about AI, a topic neither one of us, and frankly, I mean, to be fair, nobody understands fully.
No one truly understands the ramifications.
And just trying to find our footing with that for 30 minutes. And then in the second half, I spent 25 minutes like an old man shouting at the clouds, talking about how I don't like the stretch. Listen, Dave, for this show, we got to pull it together. We got to start rebuilding our audience. So everybody that we've left and lost behind, we've got to make this show an actionable, useful, powerful show. We got to bring it back in this one episode.
All right, we can do that. We can bring it back around. Honest to God, though, I will never tire of hearing, now that I know it, that you hate stretching, because it is the weirdest GD thing to be against. Like, it's like you've picked spoons to hate. You're like, I hate spoons, and I've always hated spoons, and I've never. If God wanted me to have a spoon, I'd be a spoon-billed dinosaur. Why do I need a spoon? Like, and like, it's so random that you don't like stretching. It's so random to me. Okay, but yes, I
just don't understand it.
Okay, go ahead. What is it?
Don't understand it. If you could explain why it's useful, I'd start stretching all day long.
Oh my God, Brad, why do you warm up your car on a cold day before you start driving? It's the same theory. It's just certain things require a little bit of preparedness.
And actually, you don't. I mean, back in the day, you needed to warm up the car because cars were built differently. But today, you really don't need to warm up a car. I turn on my car. By the way, living in Los Angeles, what the fuck do you know about warming up a car?
We committed to making this show useful. God damn it, we're not going down this.
Actionable, useful,
actionable. I'm just going to keep repeating that as my mantra.
Actionable and useful.
Mantra, angulem.
What it is mantra.
Mantra. All right, that's great. All right, Brad. Well, this one comes in from patreon.com/comiclab and comes in from an anonymous friend and says, I want to have a pen name because I want to separate my art stuff from my normal day job. And I kind of feel uncomfortable using my real name for privacy reasons. I know that in the future, some people might know my real name, but for now, I kind of dislike the thought of building an art career around my real name. But my problem is finding a good pen name. I'm afraid that if I pick a pen name and build a brand around it, but then at some point start to dislike the name I choose, do you then have any advice on coming up with a good pen name and what to do if future me doesn't like the pen name anymore? Thank you in advance. So, Brad,
all right.
This is a two-part question, I guess. Oh, no, it's maybe a three-part question. It's your general thoughts about pen names, and then your advice on picking a pen name, and then what to do when you've made a significant life choice and then don't like that significant life choice, Brad.
This, by the way, this is why I can never get a tattoo.
Me too. I don't trust future me to not be pissed at present me.
Yes. And I remember a girl I knew in college wanted me to design a tattoo for her. And I said, I don't want to because what if I don't do it well enough? And and then you're looking at that all this time thinking, he was a real hack, you know?
Can I tell you, because I've had, I don't want to overstate it. I've had maybe 2, maybe 3 people get tattoos of my comics on them, right, in my life. Yeah. And every time it has made me so profoundly uncomfortable because I'm like, I know that I'm not going to like my art 3 years from now, whatever art I'm drawing right now. Yes. And now you have this stuck on your body. And I know people that have tattoos are going to say, listen, this is a choice. And it's I in absentia am like anxious for them for getting my art on their body. I'm always like, I don't know about this. I think this might be a bad choice. Maybe make a different decision. Oh God.
Yeah.
I'm not good about it.
Yes, but so here's what I think, and that is, I think that this is a case of maybe overthinking. And the way I went through it with myself is like, well, how did I come up with the name Brad Geiger? I didn't. Right. It was kind of, for lack of a better term, it was assigned to me. My parents gave me the name. Right. And I've been branding under Brad Geiger for years and years and years, didn't put any thought into it. And it's been perfectly good to brand on it. Now, having said that, let's keep going forward. What if I got to a point where I'm like, I'm not Brad Geiger? Right? What if I got to the point where I felt that name didn't fit me anymore? Or maybe I'm a different person now. Well, then you do like a lot of our friends have done, and you choose a new name that fits who you are now. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that is in a way rebranding. It's kind of the same thing, right? And so I think I wouldn't spend too much time. I'd spend a little bit of time, but not in the way you're thinking. I would do some SEO searches. I would make sure that I'm not choosing another name that just happens to be the name of like a popular person in some field that I'm not familiar with, like a nuclear research person that I wouldn't think of as a celebrity. But as soon as I put that name in, I see that they've published thousands of papers on splitting the atom. Right. I wouldn't want to choose that by mistake. But I don't know that I would put too much effort. I would love Drive as much as I do right now if it was done by somebody whose name was Irving Forbush, right? I would still love Drive. Doesn't matter that it's
if you picked that out of the ether, that was a great name out of nowhere.
I think I stole that from Mad Magazine, but early Marvel Comics. But at the end of the day, here's what I want you to know. Theodore Geisel's work was so strong, he would have been just as. Oh, well, okay. You son of a bitch.
Brad, Angoulême. Brad, Angoulême.
I actually Wikipedia'd that, but I didn't write it down pronunciationally for me, so I did.
By the way, this is me again. Why do I do this? I hate myself right now. Why did I stop you?
Look what I've got written down on this Post-it note.
Guys, he's prepared work, and then here comes Dave. Gotta correct my friend.
My God. At the end of the day, Theodore Geisel's work was so strong. It's Geisel, right? Or is it Geisel?
Geisel. It's Geisel.
For Christ's sake. At the end of the day, this fucker's work was so strong. He would would have been just as successful if he would have chosen the name of Leo Lessig instead of Dr. Seuss.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, my research did show me that he pronounced it Dr. Seuss, not Dr. Seuss.
Is that true?
But that's true. Well, true as far as Wikipedia says, so as true as it gets online.
Seuss?
But Seuss. Yeah, as a matter of, I don't have it. Somebody wrote a cute little poem about it.
Was he a guy from Jersey? He was also in the mob? Hey, this is a nice Seuss. It goes well with this pasta.
Hey, it's Seuss over here.
Yeah, I need more Seuss with my bread.
But listen, I wouldn't overthink it. I would make sure that you're not choosing a name that is very popular in a search already and is going to kind of trip you up. But I wouldn't. And here's what's going to happen. What if future you decides that they don't like that pen name? Well, then you're going to either live in, you're going to grin and bear it, because at the end of the day, Brad Geiger, spelled Guigar, isn't exactly optimal. Right? Everybody thinks my name is spelled the traditional way, Geiger, as in Geiger counter. Not optimal. Hasn't cost me a whole lot of readers or money or anything else. So, but if it gets to a point where you just hate it, then you choose a new name and rebrand. Am I missing something? Am I downplaying this person's concern?
No, I don't necessarily have anything oppositional to say about what you've just said. I will say this though, that I want to say. Just broadly, there's a million reasons, good reasons why someone would want a pen name, either for personal safety, or for privacy, or for family politics, or for religious politics and the people in your life, or for social politics, but I think privacy and safety are the two most common ones that I hear.
Yes.
But also, if you choose a pen name well, it can reinforce branding. Like Dr. Seuss, not for nothing. For most of my life, I thought it was a doctor writing that book until my young life anyway. And I think for the average stupid person coming towards his book, they're like, oh, he must have been a pediatrician or a child psychologist or something. I'm saying it didn't hurt him that it was Dr. Seuss. There was something. And there was also sort of something fun and whimsical in the same way like that doctor, what was it, Dr. Doolittle talked to animals or Dr. this or that. There's a couple children's book characters that had whimsical names with doctor in it. So it had a whimsy to it. But in general, I want to say I fully support. Oh, or also the third reason that why some people choose a pen name is to keep your day job. Like I've seen more than a few people do that, where they go with a pen name to keep their day job so that never the twain shall meet. Anyway, all of which to say is there's a lot of valid reasons to go with the pen name. I can think of Dr. Seuss had a pen name. I can think of, what was his name? Charles Moulton, the guy that came up with Wonder Woman. That was a pen name. Yeah. Which, by the way, what a weird, it was sort of a parallel choice. It's like Bob Skibbins. That's my nickname, Anyway.
Yeah. Stan Lee is a pen name.
Stan Lee. Stanley Lieber.
Stanley Lieber.
Stanley Lieber. Yeah, that's right. And then Kukrinitsky, which was the Russian trio in World War II. They were a pen name.
Oh, yeah, everybody.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. For once, I get to use my master's degree in World War II propaganda. For once, I bring it out. God damn you, Brad Geiger. No, I have a useless degree, and the one time I use it.
Wait. Actionable, useful, helpful advice.
Okay.
Actionable.
These three Russians in World War II worked together on one comic title. They realized it was better marketed as one name. So they took the name Kukrinitsky as their name, and they cartooned under a shared name.
I feel useful and helpful that I've learned something
That
today.
was some
Thank
actionable advice from my actionable master's degree that I got in an actionable way that helped me in my career.
Well, let's be useful. What advice would we give somebody if they wanted to choose a pen name?
Okay.
I mean, we all know the old, this is old news, but supposedly porn stars choose their names with the first name is the name of their favorite pet and the last name is the street they grew up on, right? So my porn star name would be none of the above Buffalo.
I would be Puppy Highland. Oh my God, that's a great name. Puppy
Highland's a great porn
My last
star
dog's
name.
name was actually Puppy, and Puppy Highland. Can you imagine a male porn star named Puppy Highland?
Puppy Highland?
That has a creep factor to it. Puppy Highland.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyway, so I think when you're choosing a pen name, it's basically a marketing exercise is the way to look at it. Because you can choose literally anything. And I think one of the more effective ones recently, it's not a pen name, but Matt Inman often refers to himself as the Oatmeal, right? Both the comic is the Oatmeal, and he often refers to himself as the Oatmeal as the creator. And there's something sort of fun about the Oatmeal because it's relatable. It's monosyllabic, which is always very powerful. And yet it's sort of weird orthogonal name choice, which you're like, really? The Oatmeal? What the hell is that? So in that regard, it's very ownable, if you know what I mean. In the same way that like sense. Dave is not a very ownable first name. You search for Dave, that's going to be, but you search for the Oatmeal comics, you will instantly, like Google doesn't even bring you to their page. They're like, we know where to send you. Right. Here you go. Just go right there. So I would want ownable. I would want it to be relatable, lean towards monosyllabic as it's easier. You might as well go for easier to spell, easier to type. Yes. I'm just saying if you can choose, why not choose something that, so.
You'd go monosyllabic.
I would, because
like two one-syllable names like John Doe.
I will tell you why. It's not an accident that most successful politicians have very monosyllabic names, and why most of the names in Marvel Comics that you can remember are pretty monosyllabic. Tony Stark, Steve Rogers. It's all pretty like bank, bank, bank. You're out in 3.
Tony has 2 syllables. Rogers has 2 syllables.
I'm sorry that I corrected Uncle Lem. I am sorry that I corrected Uncle Lem. Oh my God! I'm trying to share actionable advice. Actionable advice.
Bruce
that was our goal going in this week.
Actionable, useful advice.
Actionable.
So you're saying you'd veer towards monosyllabic, even if it wasn't like a strict monosyllabic.
Yeah, or because frankly, as memorable as having like a clown name like Slappy McHappyface, it's harder to type, and it's more likely that someone's going to get it wrong in searching for you SEO wise. So why not go monosyllabic or easy to type? Do you oppose that idea?
No, I don't at all. It's just that you were so certain about monosyllabic. I wanted to know why that was. It struck me, and I wanted to hear more about your thought behind it. That's
well, I just look at. I guess another way to say this is look at presidents over the last. We're on 46 now. Look at like the last 20 presidents in terms, or maybe even 10 since in the modern age. And most of the presidents, it's an odd coincidence, I think, but perhaps not, that they all have very monosyllabic names.
Right. Like George Bush.
George Bush is bink bonk. But, you get into, what was the guy that ran against the Massachusetts governor that had the famous video in the tank with that ill-fitting hat?
I can see John Lovitz playing him on SNL.
Yeah, I think he had a Greek last name. What I'm saying is if you're trying to do well in American politics, a Greek last name is not helpful to you because it's like it's so long. And so it just so happens that a lot of Disney titles are monosyllabic. A lot of politicians are monosyllabic or near monosyllabic, to Brad's point about Tony Stark having 2 syllables. Thank you, Brad. So that's where I would err. But now let's turn to this one, Brad. Okay, you've picked your new nickname. Brad's new pen name is Chip Thrustwell, and he's cartooning NSFW Evil Inc. comics. But 5 years from now, he's like, I don't know about Chip. I don't know about Thrustwell. I don't know about this pen name anymore. I'm going to change my name. Is there anything wrong with that, first of all, now that you've done the branding for 5 years? And if you do change your mind, how do you approach it?
Well, I mean, being realistic, if I'm going to rebrand, I'm going to have to also start working on another comic, right? Because I can't say all of a sudden that Chip Thrustwell is going to retire Evil Inc. and now it's going to be done by, Flint Hardbody.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. So to this question asker's point,
stuck with it.
You're kind of stuck with it once you go with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also,
I mean, there is that.
If Like, do I wish I had called Sheldon something else every once in a while? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I wish I had called Drive something else every once in a while? Yeah. But listen, there's so much SEO and marketing push behind that now. Why would I ever change it? And I think the same is true for pen names.
Yeah, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. You are going to be the truth of the matter is you are going to, just like that tattoo conversation, you are going to be a different person in 10 years, no matter what.
Yes.
And it's just the question is, would I rather have a more SEO friendly name than Geiger? Yeah, absolutely. It's spelled completely confusingly, right? But again, the other thing is, does it upset me enough that I want to change it? Nah, not really. You know, if I think about it for too long, I can get a little agitated. But at the end of the day, I kind of realize that there's a lot more important things to do, like writing tomorrow's comic, and I get back to it.
Yeah. I also think there is a more of a cultural acceptance to changing one's pen name as an artist if one is massively successful versus the sort of eye rolls that you get if you try to change it and you're not massively successful. So Prince can become the artist formerly known as Prince when he changed to a symbol, or Kanye can become, is it Ye or Ye? I actually don't know. I've never pronounced it out loud, but, you know, and that's sort of acceptable among their fan base. But if I, Dave Kellett, all of a sudden say, I want you to call me Rockington, and everyone's like, eye roll, you know, like, because I don't have the attaché, not the attaché, what's the word I'm saying? The cachet, sorry, not attaché, God,
the attaché.
Angoulême. I don't have the cachet to have the name change go forward, you know?
And knowing your affinity for the French, you just stay with Dave Calais. David Calais.
I have to say, as a masterful French speaker, I would probably lean into Calais. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so what's our actionable advice here? Our actionable advice is it valid to do a pen name? Absolutely. There's a million names. Yes. There's a million reasons to do it. What do you go with? Well, ultimately, it's a subjective choice. But I would lean towards something memorable, something short, something easy to type. That you certainly do not have to go that route. I'm just saying there's enough evidence in cultural histories that would say monosyllabic short names tend to do well as far as memorability. Can you change it? I think I would err towards no. It's probably a little harder to change it down the line once you've done it. But you can. Life allows for that, and increasingly society allows for people changing their names multiple times over the course of their life. So that's where I come down on it. Brad, what are your final thoughts on this one?
I co-sign everything. I would do a few searches and social media to make sure that you're not choosing a name that's already pretty popular for other reasons. And here's final word on this. Spend an afternoon really focusing in on this. Spend an afternoon doing all the stuff that we just got done talking about, and then never think about it again. Yeah. Right? Like this is the sort of thing that you could really get like focused on, and it could take your eye off the ball. So spend one afternoon. Really, this is going to be the only thing you get done today is coming up with your pen names. The only thing that's on your list. And then after you decide on it, never think about it again.
I think that is the best way to put that out in the world. Yeah. Yes. Never think about it again. Hey, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we're going to tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
When you do, you're going to get hours and hours of podcasts that we recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And access to our exclusive Discord server, which is a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And listen, if you can't swing a pledge this month, we get it. No worries.
Yeah, listen, you can still support the show by rating us wherever you get your podcasts.
Just leave a 5-star review and a few kind words.
That, along with mentions on social media, is incredibly helpful.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
Dave, I'm told you have a very actionable and helpful update for us today.
It's actionable, it's useful, it's implementable. Yes. It's infinitely of a utilitarian nature. So I have an update for everybody this week that I noticed that Patreon quietly has turned on these surveys And it's an opt-out situation, not an opt-in. So no matter who you are, you start off with this thing where someone signs up to Brad Geiger, or I'm sorry, Chip Thrustwell's new Evil Inc. Patreon. And when they sign up to Chip's Patreon, it immediately gives them a survey of like, hey, why did you come? In terms of what are you looking for? Are you looking for extras from the artist? Are you looking for interaction with the artist? Are you looking for being a member of the community? All that sort of stuff, right? This is like 5 or 6 standard answers. Yeah. And I want to propose, and I'm sort of curious. Well, here's what I will say. I'm going to propose turning that off, because why bother someone when they've just agreed to be your pal? They're already in. And like, what actionable advice are you getting from them saying why they joined, right? Is my thought. So I'm going to say and then I want to hear what Brad's thoughts are, but if you are like me and you want to not bother them after they've just signed up, because for me, I'm sending them bonjuros, I'm sending them individual emails of welcome. What I do is I go to Insights, then I go to the Surveys sub-tab, and then I click Turn Off Survey. So Insights, Survey sub-tab, and then turn off survey. But now I want to tell you, as I'm saying this, Brad is looking up to the sky with a tongue pressed to the side of his mouth as though he's got some things to say. And so I want to hear what you have to say about, do you, Brad, keep the survey on happily, willingly?
Well, in the same vein of being actionable and helpful and insightful, what I want you to do now is go to your Patreon, go to Insights, and then go over to Surveys, and then turn that Surveys back on. Because number one, getting into the mindset that you're bothering people when they're joining your Patreon, I don't think that's a great mindset to begin with. But it's not a bother. It's not a bother. It's a fucking button. All right. I actually, I'll tell you the truth. I'm not a big fan of it, but for totally different reasons. But I wouldn't turn it off. I think I'd keep it on. I would love to be able to change the questions, because a lot of the questions don't necessarily fit my Patreon. And so it's not giving me usable advice for me. I'm not thrilled with it. And I saw immediately when that news came out, I saw a lot of people hitting the Discord server saying, oh, great, we can turn the survey off in our welcome as a message, right? Because if you're listening to Comic Lab, you know that both of us, well, I guess me more than you, I've suggested putting a survey in your welcome message to Patreon onboarding that says just one question. How did you find me? How did you find out about what I'm doing here? Because I've gotten really useful information from that one question. How did you find me? Very useful, especially in the lack of Patreon analytics that should be telling me the answer to that question already, but we won't go too far into that. But I do like, I would not think that this survey supplants that survey that you're putting into your welcome message. But I think that I would leave it on because A, I don't think it's hurting anything. But B, I don't like the idea that you're bothering people. Now tell me where I'm wrong.
I kind of, my favorite part when I've got the family together and I've plunked down the money and I'm walking in the door for Disneyland is when they hand me a form with administrative questions about how I found Disneyland and what am I looking forward to most about being a member of Disneyland today. Yeah. Here's my thought about it. Is it a bother? Yes, because it's asking someone to do a GD quiz when they first come into, that's not what they came. They came to get stuff for them, not to give you more stuff in you can in time ask them. I'm saying, like, don't hit them right as they walk in the door. You want to hit them with warmth and welcome and fun and extras. You don't want to be like, you know what everybody loves? Everybody loves a survey. How about you fill out a survey? How are we doing here at Patreon? By the way, none of which is actionable for the cartoonist or for you. Fill out the survey.
Okay, you got me there. But what did they get right on my welcome? What did they get right above that? A link to a free e-comic that they could download.
Great, they're getting golden.
They're getting lots of welcome. But here's what I really do take umbrage with. I am not a person walking into
Brad, it's umbrage.
You son of a gun, yet. But they are my fan. This person that's coming into Patreon, they're not run of the mill. They're a fan. They want what's good for me. They want to help me. Every last one of them that I talk to, they want good things for Brad Geiger. That's what brought them to Patreon in the first place. So asking them to fill out a simple questionnaire, number one, they can easily just say, nah, not going to do that. Right? It's not, they don't have to pass through it like they're going through a gatekeeper and you've got to answer yes or no before you can go take another step. They can ignore it, but most of them are happy to do it. Why? Because they're fans of Brad Geiger.
They're fans of Brad Geiger. And Brad, have you ever watched a pilot of a show and you're like, this is amazing. Where's the streamer for this? Oh, great. Here's the whole season. And then you click on episode 2 and they go, hey, before you start the fun, just take a minute. Tell us what brought you to this show. Hey, you like forms, don't you? How about some administration?
That would be such a good example of what we're talking about if it had anything to do with what we're talking about.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't, because there's no blockade. It's a little link there, and then they either click it or they don't.
Okay, well, I'm going to save everybody involved time. Here's going to be the answer you're going to get 100% of the time as to what they want out of Patreon. They want extra stuff. That's why they signed up. Every single time,
absolutely right.
100% of the time, turn off your survey. That's going to be the answer. That's what made them sign up, is they want extra stuff. I can save you the survey, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing. That's why they signed up. Are they going to get it? That's up to you. But that's why they signed up. They want to get extra stuff. It's not for the community. It's not for more interacting with the artist. It's for extra stuff. That's why they signed up. Turn off your survey. Let's go on to the next topic.
You actually have me there. And just to read it through, and by the way, in Comic Lab, we've had all of one response. We haven't turned it off yet, but as soon as Dave signs on, I got a feeling it's going to be off.
I won't turn it off if you don't want it.
No, news and updates. Okay, hold on. I was not.
Here's some actionable advice from Brad. Hold on.
The one that we got, I was not expecting. The one thing that they're looking for, this one respondent, which is totally not scientific, was news and updates. And then we got 0% exclusive work from the creator, connecting with the creator, connecting with other fans, merch or products, supporting the creator financially, and all of those got 0%. This person said news and updates, which, by the way, I'm actually not, you're bringing me around to your side, because I know to a 100% that exactly what my people are coming to Patreon for, and it's for the exclusives. I know the answer to the question. I know that I'm going to keep that survey in my welcome email. You're not talking me out of that.
You're going to take it out.
No, I'm not. No, because Dave, this is crucial. That's how I know that 76% of my people found out about my Patreon through my website. If I didn't know that, I would be schnookered by all these people who say that I've got to be on a platform. And my friend, we've been telling people for the last several years that they need a comic website, mainly because of what we're seeing from that response to those kind of outreaches. So no, that was way too important for me to screw up. I'm keeping that. I'm keeping that.
I'm granting you that point. You might be right that is a better question, and it has more utility for you. So yes, I will grant you that question. I think everyone should turn off their auto Patreon survey, because the answer is going to be more free stuff. Or what you're going to find is that out of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that have joined Comic Lab, we pestered them right out of the bat with a survey that one person answered. So that tells you that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people didn't want administration when they first signed up for Patreon. I'm saying, as a friend, turn that damn thing off. Give them a nice welcome message like Brad does and I do, that gives them more stuff, because that's why they signed up.
And I'll even come around to this. If you were, if you agree with what Dave says, that this is not the time or the place when you're onboarding. Is not the time and the place. I would agree with that, although I would say you do want to supplement that with maybe a quarterly survey that you put out through as a Patreon post, and do a poll, right? You can do a poll on a Patreon post and ask them, how did you find out about my Patreon then? Right. It might be a little bit worse because it won't be top of mind. Right. This will be a little bit more top of mind. You catch them in the moment. But if you are going to turn off or not do that welcome survey in the welcome email, I would just suggest that you supplant it in another way, because I'm telling you, I got information that I use all the time in my decision making through that.
Right. I just remember Brad's thing about what brought you here. How did you get here? How did you find me? I actually have to admit that is actionable information that you can work off. Useful. It has utility. Much like this episode of Comic Lab, it has utility.
Actionable.
Which we're trying to do. Actionable advice, not talking about stretching. Okay, so
yelling
but
and
I will say, in my experience, most cartoonists create these surveys. This was more prevalent back in the days of advertising when we tried to pass this along to advertisers. We would create these surveys. Are you a man? Are you a woman? Do you make over $50,000 a year? Do you make under $50,000? Oh, are you from America? Oh, are you from Europe? Where are you from? Oh, there's all these questions. And then you'd get these surveys back in, and literally the utility would be this. Look at that.
Oh my God. Don't get me started. How many prospective advertisers or sponsors have we done that for? We've asked Comic Lab readers our listeners to do that survey. And then they look at it, all these different numbers that are in all kinds of different orders and this and that. And they go, interesting. Well, anyway, they were like, why did we spend all this time putting this survey together?
I just think I think Brad's single question that frankly has a utilitarian angle to it. That one, I think I grant in full friendship. That one is a useful question. I personally feel like the Patreon survey that you have automatically turned on when you start a Patreon, turn it off, because I can tell you right now, the thing that brought 99% of the people there was more stuff, free stuff, extra stuff. You don't need to know the survey answer. I'm telling you right now, that's what brought them there.
Yep. No, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
So let me jump us into our next question, Brad, and I'm going to take the win on that one. And this comes in from Eddie over at patreon.com/comiclab. And Eddie writes, greetings to my favorite cartoonist podcasters. Because of your podcast, I've learned and accepted that lettering is its own art form, equally as important as your writing and art. That said, I encountered something in a self-published comic that made me cringe. In some dialogue, the word Mr. was abbreviated. Similar to the rule that numbers should be written out rather than using numerals, I say that abbreviations such as this are just as egregious and incurs the wrath of the lettering gods. What say you two? Bradley Geiger, the abbreviation of Mr. or Doctor or Mrs., how do you feel about that? Those kinds of abbreviations, those title abbreviations.
Yeah, honorifics.
Honorifics. Thank you. I couldn't remember the word.
Yeah. Oh, so this is fascinating to me. I've been going through all of this, and my answers to my own questions on this just led me down through an amazing amount of. I'm going to say self-discovery, and you're going to make fun of me, but
I'm glad that Chip Thrustwell is having a great week of self-discovery. This is great.
Oh my God, Chip often does. But okay, so Eddie mentions the advice that we've given often on the show that you should never use a numeral. You should always write out the number whenever you can, right? If it's 2024, like a year, well, then you're not going to write that out in words. You're going to use the numerals. But whenever possible, you should write out using words, those numbers. So before I go any further on that, it's important for us to take a pause and say why we recommend that. Why do we recommend doing that? Well, because the number 1 can look like a lowercase L or a capital I. The number 3, surprisingly enough, can often, as your eye is rampaging through the text, can read as a letter E. But even if you kind of hand wave that, a 5 definitely in hand lettering looks like an S, and a 0 looks like an O. And the result of all of this is that and by the way, you can even go even further. A 6 can kind of look like a lowercase b. There's a lot of stuff that happens here, and your eye can very quickly go through, and what happens is you trip up the reader, and especially there's one number you'd have to put a knife to my throat to get me to use the number 15 as numerals, because that looks like is.
It does look like is, yes.
Right?
Especially with my handwriting, the way I do a 5. Yes, I agreed.
Yeah. So the reason for that, the why behind the what, is that you don't want to trip up the reader when the reader is trying to read through your dialogue, and especially if you're doing humor, then that's going to, anything that trips up your timing is deadly. So go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, this goes back to one of Brad's core tenets, that they can't read your comic if they can't read your comic. And so even if you are like, well, look, my number 15 is not is. Yes. I just want to remind you that you have a lot of readers that are either vision impaired or have, they might not have the right glasses at the right time and when they're reading your specific comic, or they might have hyperlexia or dyslexia. There's a bunch of reasons why someone could be having trouble distinguishing your letter forms from your number forms. So it's more of a baseline ability to read the comic, as Brad always says, that you want to lean towards, you know?
Oh, you're really coming through to my central point here. But so I was thrilled to hear you say that. But let's go a little bit further on before we really get down to the answer here, because
oh my God, did you hear that? That was, oh my God, that was so great the way Brad masterfully, diplomatically. That was nice, David. You were really nice to chime in. Let's put that aside until I get to
No,
that was fine, Brad. Brad, I liked your retort.
I wanted to put a bookmark here because that is something that's going to play into where this all goes. Grumpy old
I just wanted to say it was so diplomatic because I invite people to listen back and just listen to Brad's voice. Like, that's right. I'm so glad you chimed in with that right there. Yeah. Whereas I was going to talk about it at the finish. So we'll just hold on to that little nugget from Dave.
And if I had been speaking in a French accent, you would have thought it was Dave. But no, I wasn't.
I just appreciated the quiet invite in Brad's voice to go back sitting at the kids' table because the parents are talking.
Hold on. Wait. Actionable, useful,
actionable.
So here's the next thing that we've got to cover. And that is that when you're doing an acronym, and that goes into the same category as honorifics, right? They're shortened, abbreviated forms of words.
Right.
Acronyms, number one, we often don't use the periods. If we're talking about the National Aeronautical Space Administration, we just say NASA, NASA, all caps, right? We don't go N period, A period, S period, A period, right? So now we've got to decide, long before we can cover Mr. or Doctor, we've got to decide how we're going to handle abbreviations and acronyms. And it's not easy because in some cases, I'm going to tell you that using the abbreviation is perfectly fine. Like NFT, that's everybody. You can assume at this point in pop culture, if you go NFT instead of non-fungible token, everybody's going to know what an NFT is. And as a matter of fact, if you call the SWAT team in and there's a snafu and they have to have the FBI come in, you're not going to spell out any of those things. You can go SWAT, snafu, and FBI, all of which are acronyms, right? But every now and again, we get lazy and we use an acronym that's actually pronounced like a word that isn't related to the acronym, and we get tripped up. For example, if we're talking about, and this would be something that would appear in a word balloon, right? Not in a social media post. Right, and context is everything. But in a word balloon, I would never use the abbreviation for work in progress because that's going to read as WIP. Right? And WIP has nothing to do with working progress.
Right.
It's okay when it's snafu, but it's not okay when it's WIP. For the same reason, I would never use an abbreviation for the Department of Transportation because that's going to read as DOT. DOT has nothing to do with the Department of Transportation, and that's going to trip me up when I'm reading that word balloon. So I'm going to spell out Department of Transportation instead of using DOT. Same thing with BO. BO, and here's another one where context is everything. In the 70s, BO for body odor was very, very popular. There was a phrase that was used quite a bit. In fact, it was on a popular commercial, BO. But today you don't hear people talking about BO as much, right? It's not a commonly used phrase. So BO, not only does it read as bow, but it's much better and cleaner talked about as body odor, right? So now, what does all this mean? What does all this mean? Well, it means that every time this thing comes up, whether it's an honorific, an abbreviation, or an acronym, you've got to decide, number one, what are the chances that your audience is going to get tripped up by it and read it as a word instead of an acronym?
Right.
And that's a judgment call. That's a judgment call. If CUPS is an acronym for Common Unix Printing System. Now, I would never use CUPS as an acronym in Evil Inc. But if I was doing a comic that was posted in a computer magazine, right, or in Unix Daily,
right,
then I'd be perfectly happy using CUPS because that audience would know it, right? So a general audience wouldn't. So my advice to Eddie is what are the chances that your audience is going to get tripped up by MR period, DR period, MRS period, MS period, etc. Now, that's a judgment call. Myself, 9 chances out of 10, or I'll actually make that 8 chances out of 10. I'll actually choose to spell it out just because I think it reads more cleanly. I like the rhythm. I like the flow. I will 8 chances out of 10 spell out the word doctor. However, I've got a character that's called Dr. Muscadet, right? That's 14 characters, 14 letters, not counting spaces, that I've got to fit into a word balloon. For Dr. Muscadet, very often I'll use DR period Muscadet, because A, there's very little chances it's going to trip up my reader, and B, if I don't, I'm going to have a very awkward word balloon that I'm dealing with. I'm going to have a word balloon that's shaped like a Subway sandwich, or as we say over here in Philly, a hoagie. And I don't like hoagie-shaped word balloons.
They're very unpleasant.
So for that's why I say 8 times out of 10, I'm going to spell it out. But every now and again, I'm going to give myself a mulligan on that because I know there's very, very little chances that it's going to trip up my reader. Now, what do you think? Actionable, useful, helpful advice, right?
First of all, I've been sitting quietly at the kids' table, so happy to listen to you because you have been giving, you were on fire there. That was actually great advice, which is all of these distinctions are, they have 2 main things. One is, will this confuse or make easier the job of reading this comic for the reader, right? That's the main job. Everything else falls behind that. Secondly, and to a much lesser extent, is how do I fit this into a comic? And then I probably at a secondary place, but in front of that one is how commonly understood is this acronym? And Brad really gave a bunch of great examples. I would even say the acronym of IOU, which is probably one of the most common acronyms you could ever imagine. I would posit that you would still want to go I.O.U. for that one, even though it's super commonly known for the exact same reasons Brad just said, which is that your mind will start to create a word form as you read it. It will not be read as an acronym at first. NASA has this benefit of A, being great branding, but also being a word form, an acronym that becomes a word form. It's a really effective word form. NASA is great. It feels like English. It feels satisfying in English. It's a happy sound, NASA. It's an acronym that works, much like FUBAR or SNAFU or, as the other ones that Brad had. There are some acronyms that just become word forms. There's a lot like IOU that just become nonsense. So it really is a subjective call of how much the average reader will approach this, keeping in mind that the average reader reads at about the 6th grade, 7th grade level, right?
Yep.
So here's something that Brad did not mention that I will put to you as advice as well, which is to be a good comics writer, you have to be a good reader. You have to read a lot. Yeah. Read a lot of journalism, read a lot of novels, read a lot of comics, because you need to be aware of what's generally accepted as far as acronyms and things like that. I personally will posit that when you're doing an honorific or a title, if I say Mr. Geiger, there's no problem in general use of English having MR period Geiger. I will posit that's fine. But if I'm going to say, can I get you another glass of water, Mr. ? For that one, you're going to want the full word. It is weird in English. It looks wrong in English if you have MR period, right? People, in fact, will start to see MR or MR question mark as MRI or something. They'll read it weird.
Right.
MRI, by the way, is another one that I would put the dots in because it starts to read like a word form, but it's not. It's mrh, and you're like, what is this word that I'm reading? So just to help people out, I think I would put the dots in on MRI. All of which to say is
it's so interesting. I'm not sure I would. But see, all of this comes down into shades of gray. Yeah. Right?
There's a lot of shades of gray in this.
Because I was asking myself, CEO, I would use CEO without the dots, without thinking twice. But COO, never. Right?
Yeah, CFO,
that's going to look like coup.
Yeah,
that's
CFO,
going to look like coup.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would. So really, it comes down, and I don't know if somebody were to sit there and tell you that they had a 100% always do it this way, never do it that way. I don't know that I'd sign off on that. I think because again, it matters who your audience is too. You know who your audience is. And also, let's face it, if you make the wrong decision, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. And that comic is for that day or that page is not going to go over. You're going to create confusion. You're going to have to deal with that. Right. So it's to your best interest to put a little thought into it and to try to come up with the best idea and the best handling that you can. But gee whiz, I don't know that there would be a 100. And if you're going to look at like the Chicago style of writing or the AP, oh God, don't ever use AP style. Not for comics. Please don't make that mistake. But because comics grammar is 100% different. Word balloons take their own kind of grammar.
Yeah, that's really true in terms of line breaks, in terms of how things present. I will say this too, is that I really want to underline Brad's idea that context is super important within language use in a comic. So like Brad had a really excellent example of, hey, if you're doing a comic about Unix or for the Unix community, there's going to be acronyms or all sorts of word choices or ways of displaying words that you can't do in a normal comic. I would argue the same is true if you're doing a military-based comic. Good God, nobody has more acronyms or ridiculous acronym use than the military. I mean, maybe government. Government also has a lot of ridiculous, in the U.S., ridiculous acronyms. So if you're doing a comic based in Washington, D.C. for the government folks, or you're doing one for the military, for military folks, you can use a lot more acronyms than you could in the average public, or maybe even true in the sciences or in technology or in academia. There are places where once you've established that this is a comic for, to, and about a certain world, you can use the contextual clues give everybody everything they need to know that you're about to use a Unix or a military acronym, right? But you can't just throw that at somebody on a comic strip that's normally about flowers or puppies, you know, like, hey, we're going to have this government acronym all of a sudden in here. You're like, I didn't know the DOD was the Department of Defense. I had no idea, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and right now at this point in history, we're grappling with how we handle one as we speak. It was the topic of last week's show that went off the rails so bad. AI, now that's one I'll argue. Number one, artificial intelligence, if you write it all out, is really going to slow you down. Way too many syllables, way too many letters. But you can't go AI without the dots because that looks like Al. Right? It's Weird Al actually had a lot of fun on social media with AI. So there's one that, again, has its own rule, A period, I period, because there's just no other way to do it unless you're going to spell it out. And if you can spell it out, I would argue that you should. But if that term comes up 2 or 3 times in the space of 2 or 3 consecutive panels, you're going to be really struggling to read that. So, I mean, there's another example, Dave, that it as we speak, it's going to be played out. And in 10 years, you might see AI and assume that it's AI without even thinking about Al, because you will have seen it so often.
Yeah, yeah. And I will posit that English is a very inventive and adaptive language. I think we are eventually going to come up with a word that is separate from AI to describe AI. So it'll be when we get to artificial general intelligence. So, and I did this in Drive, where I had it where in AI, artificial general intelligence exists And what happened is in the 22nd century, Scottish teens on social media started, instead of using the word artificial, they started calling them fish. So now in the world of Drive, an AI is called a fish because it's just a better word for it. Because because English is so adaptable, you know what I mean? And it finds a way to find an easier path that's more identifiable. So anyway, what I'm getting at here is context matters. Also, context for things that you've established earlier in the strip. So if I say Mr. Geiger, and I'm spelling it out a whole bunch of times, probably by page 20 of that story, I can just go to MR period if previously I didn't want to. You get where I'm going with that, is that once you've established a thing, much like a journalism article, they'll do the first parenthetical of what an acronym means, and then thereafter use the acronym. You can kind of get away with something similar in comics if you're doing a longer form story. Oh,
absolutely. Especially in the book form, right? In that book, it's going to read perfectly well.
Yes.
And I agree. I kind of like the idea of Scottish teens creating a new term for artificial intelligence. That's a nice little touch on your part.
One of the fun things about Drive is that I do these found documents in the story where, there'll be a torn out page from a book or an encyclopedia entry or a memo from a corporation. And so there was one a while ago that talked about why humanity got rid of artificial general intelligence in the world of Drive. And they talk about how these fish, what they did, how they ruined the world, and how humanity reacted. It was fun. It was fun to do.
I'm going to be honest with you. For the last year and a half, I've been trying to figure out how I could steal that idea for myself, because I just like the idea of being able to have that for the book and also be able to throw that in to adjust whether I've got odd pages or even pages. If I want to jostle the page order so that I get a page flop just right. How you can choose to have something amazing happen after the turn of the page, but you got to have your pages just right. Having something like that to throw in to adjust the even odd flow would be really useful. And I still haven't figured out how I can do it for myself, how I can steal that idea from you.
Well, two things. The first thing is, and this relates to our question asker about pen names, is I'm going to say that, in the same way that we said, if they decide to change their name 5 years from now, they certainly can. It's a little wonky, but they can. I'm going to give you permission as a friend. You can just start introducing found objects into your story in terms of pages. You don't need permission to do it. What I'm getting at is no one is going to be so shocked and weirded out by it that they'll be like, what is this? And if they are, they'll adapt very quickly. Like in the same way that you went from black and white to color, you can just start sprinkling it in. And then the second thing I will say is, I will tell you, as someone who has done it many times in terms of pagination, it's not a big as issue as you think to sprinkle in these things in a way that's satisfying. They're very malleable in terms of where they can fall in the story. And frankly, it matters less than you think on where they fall on a page flip. I get what you're saying, that some are more impactful on a page flip, but it matters less. So all of which is to say, I encourage you to do it. It's a fun way to build out the world of a comic. And it's quite satisfying for both the artist and the audience. I highly recommend you do it for Evil Inc.
You know what else it is? It's actionable, it's helpful, and it's useful. And before we screw it up and say something that's going to ruin everything, I'm going to hurry up and say this. You've been listening to Comic Lab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my friend Bat.
That was not actionable. That was not useful. Listen, we're so close to having this. We just got to end the show.
Just got to bring the plane
an actionable note. Just bring it in.
I can see the runway. The lights are blinking. Oh my God! I'm trying to bring the plane down. I'm going to say this slower. Your hosts have been my dear, wonderful, actionable friend Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com.
And my good friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com. And don't forget that new book. Now don't let me screw it up. It's Pickles Book.
Picklesbook.com. You're going to want to go over to picklesbook.com and get that 240-page Sheldon book. You're going to love it. Do jump in.
So useful. So actionable.
God damn it! And I'm going to give a shout out on this week's show to Kukranitsky, who has not been mentioned in public for 70 years. They are the Russian trio of cartoonist propagandists from the Soviet Union from the 1940s. Kukranitsky, Brad's new favorite cartoonist supergroup.
I had a nickel for every time I heard Kukla Fran and Krenitsky over there. Holy moly.
I will say the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net, and this episode was edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love Comic Lab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. But boy, oh boy, I'm telling you, keep giving us those 5-star reviews on Spotify. If you're looking for a cheap, actionable, useful way to show your love for Comic Lab, that Spotify rating does the trick.
And Comic Lab is made possible by your support on patreon.com/Comic Lab. So we'll go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/guillotine. Friends, you've just been listening to Comic Lab with Brad and Dave, and oh God, we're so happy you listened to the show. And now, because everyone loves it, a quick survey. Did you find today's show to be actionable or useful or utilitarian or performative or comedic? Everybody loves administration. Please click on one of these as you listen to this podcast.
I think you're trying to taunt me. I'm going to give you an APU rating of 4 out of 5 stars. That's actionable, practical, and useful. I'm giving you 4 out of 5. I think you tripped up a little bit with the survey, but you pulled it together good at the end. I'm giving you 4 out of 5 stars for your APU.
You know what? I am going to cut off that acronym with the guillotine, Brad. With the guillotine, I'm cutting off that acronym.